Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. It doesn't have a name yet, but it's gonna be awesome. Uh, I'm bringing on my guest from Tidbits, Etchie and Lesley Jo, and my pal Freddie. That we're gonna have a show at the Sanford's West End Trading Company. So, without further ado, welcome to the show, Etchie, Lesley Jo, and Freddie. How are you guys?
Hey,
Hey,
Doing
great.
great.
Fantastic. So just so wanted for you all to be on the show in Stanford at the West End Trading Company coming up on September 2nd. And we're gonna it's just a variety show with live podcast and music and storytelling and stand up. So without further ado, Becky and Lesley Jo, talk about Tidbits. What's it all about? How did it all get started? Bring us a history lesson.
well, I actually like that you mentioned storytelling because that got me excited because this is a lot of what it is. A lot of times, we have a guest on Tidbits, and we kind of tend to ask questions that don't get asked of them. A lot of times, they're not even, they're just a normal person. They're not famous. They're not in any kind of entertainment industry, but everybody has an interesting story. Is kind of the idea. Along with different segments that we come up with where we talk for 5 minutes about tidbits of things, which is usually just whatever I thought of or whatever Lesley thought of that we bring up to each other and to the guests, that we just have a conversation that you might never have otherwise thought you would have had.
And we generally make it, if we are interviewing comedians or podcasters, we ask of them to talk about something they've never talked about on a podcast before. And we usually try to dig a little deeper with it if they're willing to. We've had people that are really compelling and have really funny stories. And there's also some episodes that are really heartwarming and heartfelt.
Most definitely. And I was a guest on one of your episodes way early in the day, and that was a whole lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
Before I came on.
Indeed. And Lesley Jo hooked me up with the alley oop and all that stuff. And Freddie's also had a podcast too. And what was that? I remember how it was and everything like that. What was Etchie and Lesley, just in case the other didn't know, what was your podcast about?
Well, it was kind of a weird one. There was an unsolved murder in my hometown that I was kind of adjacent to. I knew some people that were close with the victim of this murder that had happened. Now it's been over 11 years. So about 3-4 years ago, I got into true crime podcasts kind of accidentally. These kind of like serial style podcasts. And I was listening to one that actually helped to solve this cold case. And I thought this could really be helpful in this cold case that I know about, that I'm, kind of loosely connected to. So I spent a little bit of time trying to get a podcaster to look at this story and situation, because I thought it was really interesting and people would be interested in it, and it could be helpful maybe to the case, because there hadn't been anything really publicly about the case in a number of, I think it'd been like 9 years at that point. But long story short, I decided to do it myself, which I was probably ill-equipped to do, but it turned into was originally going to be like 5 episodes and kind of just talk about the overview of the thing. And, there wasn't much out there about it. So I was just going to talk with some people that I knew. And then it just snowballed and became something a lot bigger than I thought that it would be. So that ended, I think, at the end of 2019 after 2 seasons. So it was podcasting is a wild ride, as you guys know.
How many in the 2 seasons? Like how many cases? Was it the same one the whole time?
It was the same one. Yeah. I was stuck on this one case. I guess these rumors that I would kind of track down, and people would come forward, and it was a mess. Just trying to get the case out there, and then I got to the point where I was really trying to figure out what happened and who could have done it or been involved or what it could have been about. And it took up a lot more of my life than I was do. But I got to learn a lot about podcasting, and I think I got quite a bit better at it by the end of it. It's an incredible thing to, I'm sure very different circumstances, but to to try to learn someone's story and get information out of them. It's a certain skill that I think maybe I grew in a little bit, but still very, very green on it.
I think I would be terrible at that. No, but I like that it's all one case though, because it's really cool, because that's really in depth as opposed to, so there's so many podcasts that it's a different case for every episode and it's just kind of a skim over. But you're really getting deep in there. Like that to me is much more interesting, and you're much more invested. It's the same case every time. I'll have to listen to that.
Power.
Yeah. It actually have you seen that that Apple TV show? What's it called, Lesley?
It's called Truth Be Told, and Octavia, is that her name? Yeah.
Octavia Spencer? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's it's basically she's immersed herself in 20 years in this case and then started doing a podcast about it, and it's actually really chilling and awesome to watch. So
I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah, because it sounds identical, like basically like she was interested in it and she loves investigative stuff, and it just snowballed. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's a huge thing. Like the whole time you were talking about this, I'm like, oh my God.
It happens really easily, I found. Or maybe it's just my personality, but it took over. It completely took over my life. But one thing that was crazy about it, I've done music my whole adult life, or since I was a teenager, and would work really, really hard on these songs and put everything that I have into them, and pay to have them recorded and everything, and get like a couple hundred listeners. And I did this, like essentially the podcast, because I couldn't find anyone else to do it. I had no idea what I was doing. And then I put it out, and all of a sudden, like, it blows up. And from my perspective, I mean, it wasn't like the top charts or anything, but I was like, wow, people really like true crime podcasts. It's definitely a genre that is blooming. That's not why I did it, but it's something that I learned and something I realized, you could really have a career in that. Was fascinating. And I did get one of the, there's a lot of people that do a different episode or a different case every episode. I was able to get a podcast called Unresolved. He did an episode on the case that I was looking at.
That's really cool. Yeah, because that genre is getting huge.
And we're gonna have a lot of people that know how to do a murder in about.
Yeah, I know. That's a scary thing. Is people will probably use this as a reference point. All of these true crime stuff.
Well, just more podcasts, I guess, will happen after that. I love it though. That's cool, and especially if you can, bring truth to the situation. That's great.
Yeah, that's what I was shooting for, and maybe it'll help. I you never really know, but that I was blown away by the podcast called Up and Vanish, and I think there've been others too that have like helped to bring new evidence or like bring new attention to a case that eventually results in new evidence coming forward or someone confessing. So it can be really helpful, particularly in cases that haven't gotten attention in a long time.
Yeah, well, and that's just the kind of thing. It's a really popular podcast genre, the true crime, but like also, all the ones that there's a huge difference in that all the ones that do like the, one case per episode where they're talking about a serial killer or whoever, most of those, they're going over everything that has already been seen in the case. They're not looking for new stuff.
Right.
It's almost like they're presenting it, and then whichever podcast you prefer, it really is based on the personalities of the people talking, and you're not getting any kind of, new information or, oh, big update. No.
Yeah, which is it's so much harder. And I understood more and more as I, was trying to, and even when I was doing the podcast, I was constantly trying to get somebody else to like take it over. That's kind of what I thought when there was more and more downloads and stuff. I was thinking, thank God, like somebody's going to swoop in and say like, can I take this off your hands that like actually knows what they're doing? But I never got that. I tried really hard. I ended up talking with people that, have big followings or on big networks and stuff. And that was always the thing, is like, it's a lot easier to look at these cases where that legwork has already been done. And there's already like kind of set in stone facts about the case, things, public records that are released and all of these things. So it's a lot harder. But it makes for, these investigative podcasts are really, really interesting, and can make a big difference. But I also listen to the one-off episode ones too.
Oh yeah, they're great. Yeah. I'm not saying they're bad.
Yeah, it's just a different art form.
Yeah.
And each comes, I'm sure, with unique challenges.
Do you do your own music for your episodes?
I did. I ended up, it's not like super spectacular, or I would just go on GarageBand and come up with something I think sounds cool and loop it a bunch of times and then put it over the audio. And
that's cool.
That part was fun. I had never, done anything like that before. But how long have you guys been doing your Tidbits?
Well, this is the weird part is I started it as a solo podcast. It was just me. And I started it 6 years ago. And, but the thing about it though, is that like, if you look at the episodes, like there were times where I didn't post anything for like 6 months and then I'd pick it back up again. And, when you're doing it on your own, it's harder to, when people are coming over to your house, like, all right, let's record, then like you do it, you're more easily motivated. And so then I brought Lesley on a bit over 2 years ago.
2.5 years ago,
about 2.5, yeah.
You're probably about 7 years deep into it, but I've been there for 2.5.
Yeah. So yeah, and there's actually a start over. Like there's an episode 1 all the way up to I think like 42 or something, and then it starts over at 1 again.
Because it's the new
7-year podcast.
It was reborn.
Yeah, I was like, this is going to be all different. We're going to reshape it.
Are you guys on all platforms? Do you have like a sweetheart deal on Spotify, like Joe Rogan, or?
Oh yeah, totally. It wasn't 100 million though; it was only 50 million.
You'll get there. Don't worry.
If it was true crime, we might have gotten a bigger deal.
Probably.
But yeah, we've had he's had several like loyal listeners follow him, and then I've been podcasting now for 3 years, I think, and I've had people that I didn't even know listen to me that have kind of come out of the woodwork and let themselves like be known a little bit. I've like received emails when I left a podcast and just support in ways that I didn't expect. So being on Tidbits, we weren't dating when we first got on that show together, but then I don't know, I guess I don't know. I'm not saying he had designed it that way, but
I did not.
That's very nice. You guys fell in love podcasting.
Yeah, our logo is my head on his body. Just best couple.
There hasn't been a romantic comedy about that. There
should be.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do it like twice. Do the episodes like twice a month. We're trying to do like more bits and release them as actual bits. Just mostly because it's a lot of time and we have a lot of other things going on. But we're not doing it every 6 months.
Oh no. That's a true crime. Lesley Jo will be back for sure.
Yes, she absolutely will.
I guess I'll ask Etchie, do you guys do, because I haven't listened to the podcast yet, do you guys edit your conversations at raw, or you edit it?
They may as well be raw, because for the most part, when we're having a conversation, if I cut anything, it's literally because Lesley would be like, "Oh," and then ask me a question, and I'll kind of freeze up, like trying to think of the answer. Yeah. I'll cut that short so that people don't have to listen to my dumb pause. Yeah. But other than that, it's really
just the raw audio.
All of it's in there. Yeah.
We try to record with the idea in mind of edit and pre.
Yeah.
As opposed to post, so you get your actual like best take out without having to make him do all these edits. I learned that over time.
They can be very consuming.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that helped me though was when I started multi-track recording.
Mhm.
So that they were all on, everybody's voice is on a separate track, so I can mess with each voice separately if there's some kind of problem, whatever. Because I also, the other editing stuff, it's not that I'm cutting out stuff, but I'm cutting out all the plosives. I've got breath control. If somebody's like right up on the mic and it's, it just like stuff like that to cut out just so it sounds better. Just the content's the same. I'm just making it not sound as rough.
Yeah.
Which I enjoy. I love it.
Breathe into the mic, I guess. Like,
I've done it. We've all done it.
Yeah. That or, a guest will tap on the table, which the table, like all the boom arms are on the table.
Yeah.
So you'll hear like a boom, whenever they even touch it a little bit. I have to go back and cut all that out because it's very, distracting. You just keep hearing people tap on it and stuff. But, for the most part, I like the realness of it. Even if for 2 minutes, a room full of people with microphones go in a direction where you go, why did we start talking about this? That doesn't make there's no point. As long as we circled back around, I'll keep it all.
Yeah, I'm always envious of hosts that can do that. I find when I listen back to the stuff that I did, I find all this stuff like, I should have said this better, or I cut a lot in my pod. I mean, it was very different, but I would have these 2-hour conversations and include like a 2-minute clip because I'm whittling down and but a lot of it too, like as I'm editing, I realized like, man, I'm not that great at talking. Like there's a real talent behind some of these hosts that are able to just like, turn the recorder on and, have these raw recordings. So my hat's off.
Get right down to it. Yeah.
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 I have to say, Sareth, I think the same goes in stand-up. I don't know if you've ever recorded yourself when you're on stage telling jokes and take out the uhs, likes, whatever's that you hate yourself saying, and then you realize that your 10-minute set was too, like, no, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but
yeah.
Early on, it was like that, and I'm just like, and like when you did the show at the Abbey, I messed up a little bit on my jokes and I stumbled a little bit, and I'm like, it sure feels like 10 minutes up here, and then it just turns out to be 6, and I'm like, crud. So, but I enjoyed it though. I'm like, Danny was like, yeah, you only did 6. I'm like, are you serious? I did like a couple stories. I thought I was like running out of time, and then I panicked and I got off stage.
You did great. We all had fun.
Indeed, it was a whole lot of fun for sure. That's always a good room because it's always packed, and to capture like everyone that was in there that on Saturday was great. But I kept my mask on because I'm not vaccinated, and I'm the whole thing. I'm like, I don't know. And I'm going to a horror convention this Saturday, and it's funny you talked about like the killings and and the true crime and stuff, and I'm gonna go see Candyman, the premiere out there. He has that mythos about him, about the movie, and it's based on a true story, of course. But gonna go meet up with Tony Todd and stuff as well. He was in the movie. Pretty excited. But I had a podcast too. It was called No Cover Podcast at first, because it's kind of like no cover charge to the shows. And but there was a magazine in Arizona that made us change the name because they're called No Cover Magazine, and they wanted the name, so I ended up changing it to Pueblo's Independent Multimedia Podcast. And the acronym is PIMP, and so it was a lot of fun. So I interviewed musicians and comics and stuff, and then I stopped calling it a podcast. I'm just calling it like live stream shows because I'm not consistent enough. And so there's so many different topics on my YouTube channel, and I feel like Joe Rogan because like he's exclusively to Spotify and I'm exclusively to YouTube, and I just don't want to edit my stuff and I'm just going to be like, this is live streaming. I'm just going to throw it up there. No bumper music or nothing. Just random people. And mostly comics, though, because I was supposed to I wanted to go on tour last year, but through the central time zone from New Orleans all the way up to Milwaukee. And since the pandemic hit, I was like, I'm just going to interview comics from home and just talk to comics along that way. It's going to be much easier.
Yeah. Is there, I mean, this is for everybody really, like a certain type of person that, if you had to interview, you're just like, this is not going to, I just don't do good with this. For me, it's musicians, because I don't know anything about making music. I don't know anything about music life, like life on the road and any of that kind of stuff. And I feel like, there's people that specifically, they talk to musicians and they have the questions that people that, are also musicians. I wanted to know that. Thank you for asking that. And I don't ask those questions. I don't know any. So when faced with a musician, I can talk to anybody, but like to get that type of, information out of them, I'm like, so you play guitar? Like, I mean, I don't, like, is there any kind of person that, like, just because maybe your lack of knowledge or something, you just go, somebody else needs to interview this guy. I don't know what I'm doing.
I'll have Freddie go first because he's a musician. So go for it.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. Because I don't know if I would be very good at interviewing anyone unless it's a topic that I'm interested in, where there's like some mutual interest. I think I can get around in conversations with most people. But if I'm like interviewing about like, I don't know, being like a neuroscientist, I'd probably get a couple questions on the spot, but I'd probably have to look into like neuroscience to like find the questions that I should be asking. So I think it's just about like, do I have like a working knowledge of a little bit about what the person does, or what the subject of conversation will be about.
Yeah.
Lesley Jo?
I think it would be the hardest to interview like an Instagram influencer or Logan Paul or somebody like that. Like, I just have no real interest at all, really. So I could really find conversation in middle ground with pretty much most anybody. But when it comes to that, I kind of like to keep away from that, really.
I can see that, because if I were to like interview a Kardashian, I'd be like, you don't do anything. What am I supposed to ask you? Like, I don't.
Indeed,
influencers are weird that way. Yeah.
And most definitely, I usually have them send a bio to me first before we conduct the interview, and then like it'll just spawn with their answers. It just spawns different questions, and I just go from there, just to be prepared. Because there's, I've never had there's probably the toughest people to talk to are like the introverted comics or the introverted people, because they don't want to talk much and they have like simple answers. I'm like, come on, man, give me some more juice out of this scenario. You can't talk. I mean, people are shy off stage. I seem to find out, and so it's really hard to like get answers out of them. But I think those are probably the most difficult people, are the people that are like they don't want to share much and they have simple answers.
Yeah.
It's like, and a lot of podcasters I did talk to, or like people that do run podcasts and stuff, that's the toughest part. Like I was watching Felipe Esparza, and he has his own show, and he was like, man, you're like, the biggest part of this whole podcast, and they don't share it afterwards or whatever, and he gets mad. And so it's like give us some more meat.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing what it can do. I mean, even like I said, when I'm, if we were to interview somebody that, they're not famous, they're not entertainers, they're not whatever, they just have an interesting story. And it's funny if they will actually share the episode, like all the content and stuff like that. I mean, it's probably double when somebody goes along with it. When you don't get very good and somebody be like, oh, that must not have been a great interview. And you go, no, they didn't share it. So like none of their friends listened, none of their family listened, none of their, I mean, it just makes all the difference in the world when they do, even if they're, again, not somebody that have, 10,000 followers on Instagram or something.
But they're not. If that's the case, sometimes they're not even willing to share what's really happening inside what they're thinking. But then at the same time, I've seen, and we don't do this on our podcast, and I'm opposed to it. Actually, is this idea where you try to get them as messed up as possible to get them to spill the beans, and that to me, I feel like is probably making it harder for them to ever trust any other show to actually open up. Really.
Yeah.
Indeed.
We've all seen
That would be a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, we start when we have a guest, I actually start out by telling them before we start recording that, hey, and people always say like, oh no, it's not going to be a problem. It's not going to be a problem, because they don't think about it. When people talk for an hour, they'll say things that then later go, ooh, I didn't mean to say. I don't want it. I don't want that. I don't like that. And I always tell them like, hey, if afterwards you think back and you go, man, I wish I hadn't have said that. Let me know. I'm not like, oh, juicy. What? No, I will take it out. I will take anything out that you say. I really wish I didn't say that. No problem. Because I don't like that. I don't like the whole gotcha. Like, oh, I got the scoop. And it's like, no, you don't do people like that. It makes for more fun.
We don't want to make anybody not feel like they can share it.
Yeah. I want the listeners to, at the end of the podcast, go, that sounded like they all had a really good time.
Yeah. It's nice that you do that. I would imagine after an hour, I would say something that I did not want to say.
I do love that, though, because I didn't know that either. That's something that came with experience, where people's like, if I don't want anybody to know this, of course I'm not going to say it. And, and I'm thinking, yeah, you will.
Yeah. Well,
not everybody does. But
I think it speaks to you being good at what you do, because I think great interviewers are able to conduct the interview in such a way that you forget the camera, the microphone are there. Like you're just having a conversation. And that's, I think, why people gravitate towards these, certain podcasts or interviewers, is because they have that ability to let the listener feel like they're eavesdropping on a conversation, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and sometimes too, it's we'll be interviewing somebody that is used to speaking. Say they are a comedian or something, they still get excited and talk and forget about the microphone and everything, because chances are I've gotten them to tell a story that like they don't tell on stage. They don't, it's about their first car and this happened and and they're going, oh, and they haven't told the story in forever. So they're like excited to tell the story again, and when you do that, stuff will slip out,
Like,
but
you can't hear this story. Like,
yeah. I've even had somebody stop in the middle of recording and go, "Oh my God, my sister's going to listen to this. I can't. I'm going to cut it out. Let's keep going."
Indeed, that's like one of the tough part about being a journalist. It's like, and that's why like keep it safe on the safe side. I'm like, I'm just going to ask questions off their bio and stuff, and there's times where I had like a live stream of like a comedy show at my festival, and one lady was like, I didn't like my set, can you edit that out? And so YouTube gives me the option to download the video again and then just crop out that part and just of the entire set and then just re-upload it. And that's how I get around it with this thing. But usually I just stick around and stay like, just some people are shy and all that stuff, and so I just try to keep it as professional as I can. And I used to work for an online newspaper that said your articles aren't juicy enough. It's not newsworthy enough. And I'm like, well, I'm just gonna tell it like it is. And that's why I get all these concerts for free, because I tell it like it is, and I make people feel like they're at that concert with me. And I don't care to make it as a tabloidy or like a rag. I'm not gonna drag people to the mud. And so that's how I got like 150 free concerts in 2 years. And I'd much rather be honest with people than make up juicy lies and get them like, I'm not TMZ, so.
Well, and sometimes something can be a huge crime. Like it could be the crime of the century, but it was a financial crime. So people are like,
yeah. Indeed. And Freddie,
crime.
Most definitely. And I feel, like journalists can get like, injured or murdered or beheaded, and it's a dangerous job, and that's what I've come to realize. I always give myself dangerous jobs, and I'm like, Man, I know what Spider-Man and Superman feel like, you know, and there's journalists too, so and they're always in danger. So most definitely. And Freddie, how did you get into music? And you're on the bill, and talk about your whole music career.
Well, I think I was probably 10 when I first got a guitar. And I don't know.
I'll bring Lesley back in when she
Okay, good. Yeah, it was like 10 or 11 maybe when I first picked up a guitar. I think was always looking for my thing. You know, my passion as a kid, and I didn't really feel like I had found it until I picked up a guitar. And I think from there I got into more music. I don't know if I, like, growing up as a young kid, if I was like super musically inclined. I don't think so. I was always maybe creative, but I didn't really music didn't captivate me until I picked up a guitar and started listening to punk rock music, kind of starting with the pop punk that was popular back then, like Blink and Good Charlotte and all those early 2000s, late 90s punk bands. And then from there, I got more into the, earlier punk rock and got super into that. And I wanted to start a band, but I was terrible, objectively awful. And so I was trying to do everything, and nobody really wanted to be in a band with me, which is understandable now. But there was an open mic up the street at a coffee shop that I started going to, and all the guys there were playing kind of folky stuff just with an acoustic guitar. So I kind of started doing more of that folky kind of indie stuff, and with a little bit of punk rock energy. And from the time I was 14 or 13, 14, every week was open mic night. I'd be there every week. And on the weekends and during the week, I'd be trying to write songs and in enough time to play it at the open mic the next week. And got a little bit better, started doing shows when I was 16, 17-ish, playing coffee shops around the area. I grew up in North Carolina, and did a couple tours when I was in college around coffee shops, the Midwest and Northeast and stuff, and recorded a little bit. And then I got a job and moved to Florida, and kind of music has taken more of a back seat in those years, and I've been in the last year or so really trying to push myself to start writing again and performing, and kind of rediscover that zeal that I had as a young chap. So I've put a couple songs on Spotify in the last few years, and have been trying to put myself out there playing bars and open mics around the area.
Most definitely. And what was the first guitar brand that you picked up, and what's the one that you currently play with?
It's a good question. The first guitar I got was an Epiphone. We went to Sam Ash in Charlotte, me and my mom, and met this guy that worked there named Todd. And I'll always remember Todd because he was like, "When you get your first Grammy, I want you to thank me," during the acceptance speech. So
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I've often dreamed about how I'm going to thank Todd for selling me a $100 starter kit Epiphone Les Paul. I don't think that's going to happen now, but as a kid, I was like, "Oh, I'll definitely do that when that happens." And yeah, so I plucked around on that, but that was like an electric, so I was super into punk, Sum 41 and that kind of stuff. And then my parents ended up getting me a Martin acoustic guitar when I was like 14, and started doing the coffee shops, and I messed around on that for a while. I've played some Fender acoustics. There's a guitar I play a lot, a Tim Armstrong brand.
Nice.
Rancid.
I didn't know he had his own guitar.
Yeah, he's got two. He's got a Gretsch, like his electric, and then he has he plays Fender acoustics, and he's got his own signature guitar. He's like probably in the top 3 favorite songwriters. So I played that a while, and then now I've got a little Taylor that I pluck around on. For the amount of time I've been playing guitar and for how big music is in my life, I don't usually gravitate towards like getting like substantially quality guitar. Not that that's not good quality, but I know people that have like $2,000, $3,000 guitars.
Yeah.
And something about that is I'm like, not that I don't get it, because, you know, I love playing awesome guitars, great sounding guitars, that I like. With quality comes expense. So I get it, but I'm always worried that like I would be constantly worried, especially some of the places I play. Like I don't want to leave it in my car and all this stuff. So I've always had guitars that are, you know, pretty good quality, but not super expensive, because I don't, you know, trust myself not to leave it somewhere or like, you know, drop it or something like that. Ruin my life.
Yeah, I feel the same way about microphones. You know, like all of mine are they're not much. They're, you know, like $100 range. But I mean, like when you're podcasting, that's all you need. Yeah, you know, you're not singing. There's not a huge vocal range. You don't need, you know, and which is funny too, also because some of the most expensive microphones are ribbon microphones, and they're the type that, if you drop them, they're done. Yeah. And, you know, so it's like you drop a $3,000 mic and it's done. Yet these, I have smacked around. Some of them have hit the wall. Like, you know, I mean, just all sorts of stuff fall over on a tall stand. And I just watch them fall over like, oh, man. And, you know, because they're fine. I know they're fine, you know, but I've never had one of those mics that you just speak into and you're like, oh, you know, because I don't need it.
Podcasters, comedians that run shows, and also musicians know the quality of a good Shure mic. Like,
yeah. Exactly. Oh, you could beat somebody to death with a Shure mic and use it the next night on an open mic, and it works fine.
It's like a Shure. I can't remember the exact microphone, but Bono uses one that's like it's $90 or something.
It's probably like an SM58 or something.
Yeah, something like that.
The ones at open mics, they're nothing, you know.
Yeah, I like gems too, like with guitars, and I'm sure there's some with microphones where people will you'll go to a show or something, you see like a mic or a guitar, and you find out it was like $200, but it sounds incredible. Or they've like done some modifications to it. It sounds incredible. So that's always kind of interests me to get like a guitar. You know, I have this one guitar that was like $50, a brand called Lauren. They make them in China. But my guitar teacher swore by these acoustic guitars, and they sound really good if you put like $100 of work into them. So you buy it for like $50, put $100 in it, and then it sounds like a $600 guitar. So I'm picturing
a Honda Civic, just because you buy a Honda Civic, you get a carbon fiber hood and a spoiler and ground effects for lighting underneath. You know, you don't just buy one.
Yeah, I've never been like a huge equipment guy, but I like hanging out with people that are big equipment people so that I can use their stuff.
We have an audience member in the audience, so if you'd like to chime in and jump in the chat, you're more than welcome to, but be nice to us. And I totally feel you, like my camera, like when I photograph musicians or comics or whatever, it's like it's 9 years old. It was like $400, and the lens on it was like $30 with the adapter total. And
wow.
Yep. And I don't edit nothing. I just throw it up on Facebook or throw it up on my articles and just like, here it is, like no Photoshop, no nothing. I just love comics and musicians and artists just the way they are. Like, I don't care if they're sweating or spitting or whatever. It just looks cool just the way they are. And that's what the way I feel like people should be, is like, love yourself, love the way you are, like love the way you look, and all that stuff. And surprisingly, I take photos of all the musicians and comics, you know, through the years, but I rarely have like a good photo of myself on stage. But it's all in the camera, so it's like.
The other night?
I was going to say, I meant to mention that to you too. I'll send them to you. Yeah, I took a few pictures of you while you were on stage, but to be perfectly honest, it was with my phone and I'm further away. I mean, I'm sure you have better. Like I don't, but I'll send them to you. But you probably be like, eh.
I'll upload it and add it to the photo albums for sure. But there's a someone in the audience, Joshua Smith. He goes, "In my recording studio, I only use $100 condenser mics." And it's like true what you said about your mics. It's like the more expensive, the more fragile it is, and and it's harder to upkeep them and stuff. And that's why I love driving my Honda rather than like a Mercedes or something. It's just the upkeep is so much easier, and you get so much more miles out of it, and it's fantastic. And
it fits your needs to begin with.
I drive a Honda Fit. I just hit 200,000 miles.
Ooh,
that's nice. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna run it until it croaks. Or
I've never resold my car. I run them into the ground, and
that's what I'm going for. Well, one of the things when you asked about guitars, I just remembered when I was in a punk band, later in high school and a little bit in college, and I had a hot pink Squier Stratocaster, like $100, and I would beat on it pretty hard. And every show, I think, until the last one, and we probably played like, I don't know, 15 shows in total. Every single show, I broke a string, and we would always be playing with other bands. So I'd always end up using somebody else's guitar. So if you go back and look at all the pictures, I always have a different guitar. So I got to play some cool guitars. But it was like, it became like a ritual. Like, you know, I was going to break a string, but I would break a string, usually pretty early on.
Most definitely. And there's more people in the audience, surprisingly. So jump into the live chat and we'll interact with you. Just be nice to us. And Freddie, it's funny you talk about like broken strings. And there's a mic in a comedy mic in Orlando called Broken Strings. But when I managed a band called the Widowhood Effect, and I met him for the first time, the video's online, and their string broke in the middle of their performance, and there was nobody else but them on the bill. So they just like stopped everything after their set and just replaced all the strings, and they had
extra strings.
Yep. And then they just went back up on stage again. And that's what I love about musicians. Like when they make a mistake, like Alice in Chains Unplugged with Sledge Factory is like one of my favorite performances. Like they messed up on the lyrics and they cuss, and then they just start all over again, and they just go all in, and it's like one of the coolest performances ever. And that's like, they say Nirvana has the best unplugged, but I say Alice in Chains has the best unplugged.
That was a very good one. I still like Nirvana best, but that is a good one too.
It's hot, controversial.
Indeed.
And real quick, Joshua Smith, he said when he said in my recording studio, I only use $100 condenser mics. Josh, if you're still there, I'm just wondering, because this is like so incredibly common. The one I bet you anything he has the same mics I have. They're the Audio Technica AT 2020s.
I have that.
You see?
I got an AT. I actually have a couple, because I think a friend of mine gave me a few. They're really good microphones. I did my whole podcast on that, or most of it.
I used to have their headphones, but I dropped it and broke it. I'm like, oh crap! And they lasted forever. The sound quality was awesome, and like you can just have the left and the right, and it's just I need to.
Josh says that's it. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good microphone.
It's awesome. Yeah.
They have really great gear.
Versatile. I ended up.
Sorry, I interrupted you. I got excited.
And I was looking. I don't have it on this table. I think it was Shure. I ended up winning a like, you know, on Instagram they'll do these contests where like comment on this picture, or, like share it or something. Ended up winning a microphone. It's like a USB microphone from Shure. It like looks like an old timey like metal microphone. So I use that a little bit, and I think it's maybe a couple $100 more expensive than the AT 2020, but I still like that better.
Indeed. And Josh had the AT 2020 for 15 years and another for 10. And Audio Technica just has some awesome products. And I have a lav mic that I connect to like my mobile recorder, and I use that to record like when I was hoping to do like a comedy special in my hometown, but record an album, but I just recorded it at a Daytona pool hall instead, and turned out much better. So I didn't use the lav mic, but I should have. But yeah, AT is the best. You should.
I have a record player from them, so it works.
Yeah.
Really
We should
well.
get sponsored.
That'd be
I
nice.
know, right?
Yep, we'll send this over to AT and see if we can get some sponsors. Maybe
The
they can
only-
sponsor my festivals. Who knows? I don't know.
The only thing I have a different kind. It's called it's by a company called Studio Project, and the only thing that I prefer, like my mic that I use, is, which by the way I'm not speaking into this. I'm speaking into my computer. So yeah, but this is like 110. Like it's the same. You know, they don't sell these anymore, but whatever. The one thing I do like on those, they have a -10 and a -20 dB, so that I keep it on 10. So that it really cuts out so much air in the room, and you know what I mean, and really just it sounds so much better to me. But if you give it to a guest and you have it on that -10 cut, and they already speak kind of low,
Yeah,
it sucks.
Yeah,
it ruins it, you know. But for me, I like that one. But again, it's the same price range.
Most definitely. I had to buy like a Razer webcam, and that's because like my laptop camera just went out, and so this is from it, and I just talk into it, and when you turn it, like it turns into like it has like one of those lights that like the ring lights.
Yeah.
So it's perfect for everything. But this is without the ring light. There's like a built-in light in there, and so it looks brighter than it actually is in here. So it's fantastic. It's like $90 or something, but totally worth it. A built-in microphone and everything. So.
Oh, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
I actually took like this LED strip and went like around the edges on the back of both my monitors, and I love it. It's like as soon as you turn them on, because basically if you're in a dark room and you're working on the computer, it does that thing, you know, where you've got the light on the sides, so it protects your eyes so it doesn't hurt. And I mean, it's one of the greatest things I've ever gotten. I think they were like $20 or something. But I mean, like lighting wise, it's one of the best things, because then you've got plenty of light, but it's also hitting the back wall. So it's not hitting your screen. So you're not getting any, you know, you've got a light source and you're not getting anything directly on the screen that's annoying the crap out of you.
Most definitely.
What was that?
Most definitely.
Sorry, go ahead, Sareth.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Like when the lighting hits the eyes, it's like, eek. And that's why I'm like, that's why like it's so hard to photograph in like really dark rooms, you know. And so like, lighting is everything for me. Like when it comes to photography, so it's like, I understand, and for podcasting too. So.
Yeah. Real quick, this has been bothering me. I have to get this out of the way. Freddie, you know, you said you liked a lot of like pop punk, especially like in the 90s pop punk and stuff like that. Do you know Screeching Weasel?
I love Screeching Weasel. Yeah.
Okay. See, you know their albums, My Brain Hurts and How to Make Enemies and Irritate People? My Brain Hurts is the couple washing dishes. It's like a black and white photo. And How to Make Enemies and Irritate People is the one where it's a man and a woman having a picnic, and he's got a wiener on a stick.
Yeah, no, I do vaguely remember that. Yeah. Oh my God, that's awesome. You're a big Weasel fan, huh?
My favorite band ever. In fact, that was another thing. Speaking of which, when I was talking about like musicians, where I'm like, I don't know how to interview them. I was like, my Weasel's right there.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
You know, like I've had people say, like, dude, there are ways that I can get in contact with Ben Weasel and actually interview him, where that's like highly likely if I wanted to. And I learned that about a year ago, and I'm still like, well, what did I say to him? You know what I mean? I'm like, I'd be like, you're great. Okay, that's today's show.
That would be overwhelming. I actually cover sometimes the song The Science of Myth. I think that's such a profound song for like such a rowdy punk band to have written.
I quote it whenever there's like an anti-religious message that somebody's coming across with the woman in the trunk, and who cares if it's real? It got her through her crisis, and I'm just like, so good. I mean, amazing.
I found it at such a time. Like I grew up very religious. I went to a Christian school, a private Christian high school, and I was, 18, rethinking a lot of things in a, crazy punk band and all this stuff. And it like, it spoke to me in a very deep way, and kind of like settled some of the feelings that I was having about religion and like my upbringing and everything that, and now I work for an interfaith organization, and, faith is still a part of it. I go to a church, but it's a very open, LGBTQ friendly church and everything. So it's, it's a song like, it still describes a lot of my feelings about religion. But I've always thought like it's so incredible to come from that source, from like this really rowdy, like awesome punk band, like
angsty.
It's a profound song. Like when I first heard it, I was like, I wonder where that song came from. Like I wonder who he's covering. But it was like, Ben Weasel. And I had that year, I think it was 2011, I had tickets to see them, and the show got canceled. And I've never seen him. Have you seen him live? I would imagine.
I've seen him twice, sort of 3 times, because like one time I saw Screeching Weasel, and then the next day at a different venue I saw the Riverdales, all the same band members. So it's like, but did you see him 3 times? I think you did.
Go ahead and count it.
Yeah. Fine doing some interviews with musicians. I think you'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Indeed. I like when I interviewed musicians, like I started off like my first 2 was 303 from Colorado. My professor set that up for me, and then like when I moved to Los Angeles, my very first interview professional wise was Be Real of Cypress Hill, and so it was like completely different. And they're all like everything except for my 303 one is on my YouTube channel, so you'll see like famous musicians like Brendan Small from Metalocalypse and so forth, and I was like Violent J from ICP popped up in my newsfeed because he had like heart failure, and he crashed my interview with Dope DOD as well as DJ Paul from 36 Mafia, and it was like the most craziest interview ever. And so you'll find that one on there. But I started off like interviewing them about what they've done so far, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere I started like asking like default questions. I don't know why, but and then and that's why I ask people about their bio, like send me something I can go off of and I can pull questions off your answers, and now it's just like simple and easy now for me. But it's fun. Like I've been to Welcome to Rockville a couple times, and there was a band that was so exhausted from interviews, and they were supposed to only give me 10 minutes, but our interview went so well that we ended up doing like 20 or something like that. And I'm like, nice. This is like, they go, this is the best interview of the night. Everyone else was boring. And I'm like, I became like a really cool journalist after that, I guess. And I don't know, but the Be Real, when we talked about Be Real and pro wrestling and stuff, and it made them laugh, and there was so much weed on the table, it was fantastic. It was so potent because that California weed and that Colorado weed is just so serious. And I don't smoke enough like that, but man, it's just holy cannoli. That's good stuff. But yeah, I'm so excited about the show coming up, and on September 2nd, Etchie and Lesley Jo will have their live podcast recording of Tidbits, and Freddie will sing his songs. And I gotta say, like, I love the way that you produce your podcast, Tidbits, and I'm glad that I have Freddie on the bill because he's like one of my favorite musicians that I ever met.
I've never been to a live podcasting before.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be like Kill Tony. It's going to be like, those. I want to bring like live podcasting onto the forefront because there's not enough of that. And I'm glad that Lesley Jo and Etchie are going to be my first experience and experiment with this. It's going to be so much fun.
And the West End is the first. The West End's the perfect place. I love that place. I mean, the people that the people that work there are great. The owners are great. The customers are great. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're just that whole, I love that place. And we've recorded there before. It wasn't live, but Lesley and I have recorded for State of the Beer Union there twice, actually. Yeah. And such a great place. That was the first place ever, too. This is really common now. I was talking to Lesley about this a few days ago where I was like, I love the West End. The West End is the first place where I ever went like, they asked me what I wanted to drink at the bar, and I was like, I want to have a Coke. And he's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm driving. And he goes, oh, well, then it's free. And I just, now I've seen that happen at a lot of places now, but that was the first time. And I just remember going like, that is so cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's literally, don't pay us. We would rather know that you don't get into a drunken car accident. And, for somebody to look out and help you look out for others like that and go, you know what, you're looking out for the others. We're going to look out for you. I loved it. And it was, and again, now that I know that it's common, I've seen it done more places, but I will have to say that feeling is the feeling I generally get in that bar anyway, where it feels like we just want you to have a good time and you feel safe there. You feel, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're good people.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I love that place too. I seen like 2 comedy shows there, and they were so attentive, and I did their open mic there, and they give you so much time. And like you said, actually, their customers are fantastic. Like I was telling like storytelling and jokes, and like stories behind my jokes and where they came from, and everyone was so focused on it. It was like, this is so cool, and I loved it. So I can't wait to go onto the main stage that's on the other side, because I guess that's where we're performing, and the sound is just amazing. The stage is amazing. The background. And I'm so blessed to have that to come in, the opportunity to perform on that stage, because I seen my buddies perform there, and it's just so rad. And I can't wait.
Gave me the opportunity to do my show at Celery there. That's where the owner presented it, like on that stage. So like I have a personal attachment with it because it kind of changed my life.
Most definitely. And Freddie, have you performed at the West End, either like at the open mics or on
the open mic? Yeah, it's been a long time. Do they do the open mic still?
I hope so.
They have one at Celery, but it's not a comedy open mic anymore.
Yeah. So I've been going to Celery on occasion, but since the pandemic a few times. But I haven't been to West End since the pandemic. I don't think they do it there anymore. I think it used to be on Mondays, and I think they do that now at Throwbacks.
Lesley also has a showcase every month, a comedy showcase every month at Celery City.
Oh, really?
There, yeah, every third Thursday. But I think the open mic is every Wednesday at Celery now for the music open mic. But yeah, I've been doing that Celery City comedy show now for over 3 years, which is just bananas.
Yeah, that's a long time.
But they
so
love
are you guys based in Sanford?
Winter Park, Castleberry, around there.
Cool. I love Winter Park.
Me too. Because I grew up, like I was born and raised in Castleberry. And so like now that I live in Winter Park, and it's just like I've always loved Winter Park. I loved, walking down Park Ave, where the park is and all that, and the train station and all that. Just that whole area is just beautiful.
Do you guys go to Austin's ever?
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. I remember going there when it first opened. God, that was 2003.
I have not been since the pandemic, but I used to go. I'd try to go to open mic, but it's really hard to get a spot. I'd have to go like 2 hours early and wait in line, and sometimes I still wouldn't get a spot, which is really cool because there's a lot of people there. It's packed always.
I always wondered if you have to get like not a license, but like a permit for this or something like this. But if you just like found a good spot and like it's not that you're begging or anything, you just want to be a busker or something, can you just set yourself up with a little crate amp and just play a little something and sing? Like, can you do that legally? Like just kind of set down a chair in a crate and just play, or do you have to?
From my legal expertise, which is none, I at least know that in some places there's regulation around it. Like in Asheville, North Carolina, I think it's like 45. You can set up anywhere you want. You could be there for 45 minutes, but then you have got to move.
Okay.
I don't know what it's like anywhere else. I just know I have friends that would do that, and they would like just go to Asheville for the day and busk. And
we love Asheville. Oh, it's the best.
It's really, really. I grew up in around Charlotte, so it was like an hour and a half away. So you could, go up there for the day or something. But yeah, it's super cool. Super cool scene up there. But I don't know. I would imagine there's some law.
There's got to be something, yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd be like, screw open mic. I'm just going to go to the street corner here.
Well, I know in particular in Sanford, they have, during the pandemic, they have reduced their noise ordinance allowances and made it, I think it's past 10 p.m. So like there's also noise ordinance things that are probably a little harder to check into if you're not like in the know of the city, especially as things can change. I just think that's a really dumb reason to get arrested.
For a noise ordinance or for busking. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine.
Either one.
I would imagine they would just tell you to leave, but who knows?
Probably.
I'm not advising that you do it.
It just seems like too big a loophole, you know what I mean? As opposed to waiting so long for an open mic.
Yeah, and some open mics are good and some are bad. Like it's it takes a while to find a good one, and then the good ones can become bad ones can become good. Like all depends on who's coming out and what the crowd is like.
Most definitely. And so we're an hour in, and I didn't want to take too much of your time, and that hour flew by pretty fast. And so we wanted to plug in our last show one more time at the West End Trading Company. And shout out to Jason for having us on the 2nd. And the posters are up, and show starts at 8:00 on the dot, so we can get our spots for each of us, and or 45. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But we got to be out there by 11, and I can't wait for us to have music and live podcasting and storytelling and stand-up. It's going to be pretty fun. And I don't know, it's just that whole thing with Stories on Sunset was just rough in the beginning, but I'm glad it world premiered at the Orlando Fringe, and for them for having me, and that was a good place to world premiere it. And I'm glad that it grew its own legs, and now I can like bring it out of the Fringe circuit and give it a shot on some other stages and see what happens.
Yeah, definitely.
And check out Freddie's music, and follow him on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and follow Etchie and Lesley Jo on Tidbits. Their information scrolling on the bottom there too, Instagram and Facebook, and listen to their episodes, listen to their music, and all that good stuff. Stories on Sunset's on YouTube. It started off in the pandemic, and then I'm glad it turned into a one-man show, so it's going to be pretty awesome. So you never know where all these things come from, but it just happens. So any final words from Etchie, Freddie and Lesley Jo? Any final words from you?
Just that this was a lot of fun, and I can't wait to do it on September 2nd.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Indeed, most definitely. I can't wait either. And I'll piece it together and put it on my website, and I'll send you all the link and for y'all to share it. And and everyone else, see you on the 2nd at West End Trading Company. It's going to be a whole lot of fun.
Looking
be
forward.
Well, everyone. Take care of each other and be well, and all that.